So this week we are going to be starting with Joshua chapter 18 and verse 1. And this is the latest movement of the Ark of the Covenant. But I want to go back and just reaffirm where the Ark of the Covenant was before. When they were camped on the east side of Jordan, before they crossed the Jordan, they had a camp set up. And everywhere that the Israelites set up a camp, they set up the tabernacle. This was portable. So every single time they camped, they set up this tabernacle. So then when they crossed the Jordan, well, of course, they had to take it down. And they had certain Levites that were in charge of taking it down and carrying it. So then when they passed through the Jordan, they took the whole tabernacle through the Jordan too. So then when they got to Gilgal on the other side, they had to set up the tabernacle again, right? Because the tabernacle was always to be set up. So then the Ark of the Covenant would have been in the Holy of Holies there. And then every day when they went around Jericho, the high priest would go in and put that blue cloth over it. And then they'd take it out and they would all go around Jericho. Then it would go back in to the Holy of Holies. So that was a place where it was always supposed to be. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it gets out of place pretty quick here. So we're going to start Joshua 18 and verse 1. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there. And the land was subdued before them. So now they've moved from Gilgal. That's the last known place where we have it. And now it's set up in Shiloh. And Shiloh ends up becoming the administrative and the religious center for the Israelites, because it stays here for quite a while. But something happens here. And this is going to be 1 Samuel chapter 4. Now what's happened is that the children of Israel, as usual, they're starting to worship other gods, namely Baal and Ashtaroth, which are gods of the Canaanites. So this is what happens. Samuel chapter 4 verse 1. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel. And when they joined battle, Israel was defeated before the Philistines. And they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. So when Israel turns from God, they're not having victory anymore. Verse 3, and when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. Okay, what's wrong with that? God didn't tell them to do it. No, they're doing this all on their own. They're not even worshiping God, and they're thinking it's like superstitious. Oh, if we just take this Ark of the Covenant, then everything's going to be okay. It wasn't a magic box. And with people who weren't worshiping God, it wasn't going to turn out good for them. Verse 4, so the people went to Shiloh that they might bring from thence the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli was a priest at that time in Shiloh, Hophni and Phinehas were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. And when the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, what meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, God is come into the camp. And they said, woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? In their opinion, they don't know that it's the one true God. That's why they're saying gods. These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. I want you to remember that about the plagues. Be strong and quit yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not the servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been unto you. Conduct yourselves like men and fight. Verse 10, and the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled, every man to his tent. And there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. Now here's the kicker. The Ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. So now the Philistines have the Ark of the Covenant. They think that they have just gotten a treasure out of Israel, a place where God met with Israel. But it's going to end up being a curse. They don't know what they got. And the Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Okay, Ashdod was one of the primary cities of the Philistines. The Philistines were along the southwest portion of Canaan. There was Ashdod, Gaza, Ekron, you see what else? Gath, and Ascalon. Remember, Gath was where the Philistine Goliath was from. But these were the 5 major cities for the Philistines. Okay, so they brought it into the house of Dagon, the temple of Dagon. And when the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. Okay, so Dagon is a fish god, but I guess it has arms and a head or something. But it's called Dagon because Dag in Hebrew means fish. And this was a god of fertility and grain. So the fish speaks of fertility. So that's why it was called Dagon. And so there was a temple at this city, Ashdod, and there was another temple for Dagon at Gath. But God's power is going to be shown here in almost a comical way. Verse 3, and when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him up in his place again. So he was prostrate in worship to the Ark of the Covenant. So God's trying to show them something, that their God is powerless. Verse 4, and when they arose early on the next morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord, and the head of Dagon and both his hands, both the palms of his hands were cut off and put upon the threshold, and only the stump of Dagon was left. Okay, I'm going to read to you out of the pulpit commentary because they say something kind of interesting here. His head and his hands were not broken off, but they were severed with deliberate care. This is what God did. And placed conspicuously on the threshold, where anyone who came into that temple would have to cross that threshold. In the original, it conveys the idea that the head is the emblem of reason, and the human hands the emblems of intellectual activity. They were no real parts of Dagon, but falsely assumed by him. And deprived of them, he lay there in his true ugliness. So this should really tell them something, and it does. It says in verse 5, neither the priest of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold, even unto this day. So they would step over it. No one was going to step on that place because it reminded them what the Ark of the Covenant, which was really the power of God, did. Okay, verse 6. See, this gets worse. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them, and smote them with emerods. I believe that's hemorrhoids. I say, God's got a sense of humor. Even Ashdod and the coast thereof. And when the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of the God of Israel shall not abide with us. For his hand is sore upon us, and upon Dagon our God. They sent therefore and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them, and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? And they answered, let the ark of the God of Israel be carried about unto Gath. So they're just going to get rid of it to another Philistine, one of these great cities. So it's like a hot potato now. And they just want to get rid of it. And they carried the ark of the God of Israel to Gath. And it was so that after they had carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city. This is the city of Gath, with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great. And they had hemorrhoids in their secret parts. Therefore, they sent the ark of God to Ekron. That was one of the other main cities. So they're just passing it off. But this is funny what Ekron thought. And it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought about the ark of the God of Israel to us to slay us and our people. So now they're acting like that the ark is a weapon, and that this city's giving it to that city, so they'll get messed up. Which really wasn't what they meant. They just wanted to get rid of it. But they kind of wanted to keep it in Philistine territory. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to its own place, that it slay us not, and our people. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city, and the hand of God was very, very heavy there. And the men that died not were smitten with hemorrhoids, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. There was something else that also happened that we'll find out a little later. He also sent field mice just to ravage the cities. Remember what I said they were saying before? Hey, remember what this God did to Egypt? It's kind of happening to them. They should have never taken that Ark of the Covenant. Of course, the Israelites shouldn't have either. It should have stayed in its place where it belonged, in the Holy of Holies, in the tabernacle at Shiloh. And the ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. So that means completion. 7, remember? So that was a completed time that God allowed it to be there. And the Philistine called for the priests and the diviners, those are like magicians, saying, what shall we do to the ark of the Lord? Tell us, how shall we send it to its place? And they said, if ye send the ark of God of Israel, send it not empty, but in any wise return him a trespass offering. Then ye shall be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. Then they said, well, what shall be the trespass offering? And they answered, 5 golden hemorrhoids and 5 golden mice. Now 5, because there were 5 of those principal cities who had all been touched by this. So that's why they're using 5. It says, for the number of the lords of the Philistines, for 1 plague was on you all and on your lords. Wherefore ye shall make images of your hemorrhoids and images of your mice that mar the land, and ye shall give glory to the God of Israel. That's amazing that these heathen have learned that from the ark being there. Peradventure he will lighten his hand from off you, and from off your gods, and from off your land. Wherefore then do ye harden your hearts, as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? When he had wrought wonderfully among them, did they not let the people go? And they departed. Now therefore, make a new cart. This is how they've decided. They don't know how to transport this thing. So God's not going to hold them accountable. They don't know. Now therefore make a new cart, and take 2 milk kine, on which there hath not come a yoke, and tie the kine to the cart, and bring their calves home from them. So what they're going to do is take 2 milk cows who've just had calves. So what is their desire going to be? To stay with their calves. They are not going to want to go. So they're like putting out a fleece. They're testing to see if this is really going to be real. So they're kind of making it impossible in a way. They're taking 2 milk cows, and then they're going to take their calves away. So they aren't going to want to move, and they've never been under a yoke before. So they would naturally, one would want to go this way, one would want to go that way. So they're testing to see if God's really going to control this. Verse 8, and take the ark of the Lord, and lay it upon the cart, and put the jewels of gold, which ye return him for a trespass offering, in a coffer by the side, and send it away. And see if it goeth by the way of his own coast to Beth Shemesh. That's a town that's going to be in the Israelites' territory. Then he hath done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that has smote us. It was just chance that happened. Now, how in the world could they possibly think that everywhere that this ark is, all of this hemorrhoids and mice and all of this people dying, how could they possibly think it was chance? I mean, think about it. This is like evolution. We can see God's glory in the heavens, in his creation. And then other people say, well, I think it was just chance. That's what these people are saying about all they've been through, and they can say that. So they're saying if it doesn't go directly up to Beth Shemesh, then we know it was just chance. But God's going to have his hand in this and make them go right there. And the men did so, and took the milk kine, and tied them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they laid the ark of the Lord upon the cart, and the coffer with the mice of gold, and the images of hemorrhoids. And the kine took the straight way of Beth Shemesh, and went along the highway, lowing as they went. They were lowing because they were lowing for their calves. And turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them unto the border of Beth Shemesh. They were going to watch this to see if they were going to go the right way. Then they will know, yeah, it was God that did this. And they of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, and rejoiced to see it. And the cart came into the field of Joshua. This is a different Joshua, a Bethshemite, and stood there, and there was a great stone. And they clave the wood of the cart, and offered the kine a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the Levites, there were some Levites who were living in this town. Levites were kind of scattered. They didn't ever get any land of their own, but they were kind of scattered around in different towns to service them as a priest. And they also settled legal matters and things like that. They were administrators of that sort. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord, and the coffer that was with it, wherewith the jewels of gold were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrifices the same day unto the Lord. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron that same day. So I'm going to skip to verse 19, because remember how I said God wasn't holding the Philistines accountable for the way they were treating the ark? He's going to hold the Israelites accountable. They know they're not supposed to be handling this. They should have just left it on the cart, went and got the high priest, brought him down, put the cloth on it, get the priest to carry the poles and carry it. They know that. But they didn't do that. And the Lord smote the men of Bethshemesh because they had looked unto the ark of the Lord. Even he smote of the people 50,060 men. And the people lamented because the Lord had smitten many of the people with a great slaughter. And the men of Beth-Shemesh said, "Who's able to stand before this holy Lord God?" Actually, no one. "And to whom shall he go up from us?" And they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kirjath-jearim, saying, "The Philistines have brought again the ark of the Lord. Come ye down and fetch it unto you." Chapter 7. And the men of Kirjath-jearim came and fetched the ark of the Lord and brought it to the house of Abinadab in the hill, and sanctified Ebenezer his son to keep the ark of the Lord. And it came to pass, while the ark abode in Kirjath-jearim, that the time was long, for it was 20 years. And all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. So this is where I'm going to leave it, in this guy's house for 20 years. And then we finally see David trying to get it back. But I want to go ahead with verse 3 and 4 to tell you what their problem was. "And Samuel spake unto all the house of Israel, saying, If ye do return unto the Lord with all your hearts, then put away the strange gods of Baal and Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts unto the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines." Then the children of Israel did put away Baal and Ashtaroth, and served the Lord only. So the reason why they had all of this trouble was because they turned from God. And you'll see all through the Old Testament, this is what the children of Israel do. They turn to God, and they're going, yeah, everything's good now. And then they get tempted by these other gods. And pretty soon they're serving them, and they're intermarrying with other people who serve these gods, and then they turn their hearts. This is what happened to Solomon. And so you may think, well, we don't have those kind of gods today, but we do. It can be anything. It can be money. It can be, your phone. It can be your children. It can be your home. It can be anything that you put at the throne of your heart. God is supposed to be on the throne, and everything else comes second. And you can see for this example right here, what happens when God isn't on the throne? Chaos. Chaos. So we need to keep him on the throne of our heart. Okay, that's my message.
Beautiful.